In the previous episode, we saw how you can use heavy-duty beams to deal damage through Zoltan Shields. Then we saw how you can extend that trick into the late game by using other weapons to take down the regular shields at exactly the right moment. Now I want to take what we learned from the late game and bring it back into the early game, specifically for the Stealth A and C. So here's a common situation with Stealth A that can be quite problematic. This enemy is hiding behind a Zoltan Shield, so our excellent weapons are not going to be as effective as usual. We can cloak the first volley, and then if both our shots hit, they still have one hit point of Zoltan Shield left. So at this point the normal tactic would be to wait a moment for the mini beam and then try to take down the Zoltan Shield and the regular shield with the lasers. Like so. And then we can deal some damage with the mini beam. So we took down one of those lasers, this one is still firing, and they're going to switch back to this one because it still has some charge in it. Now the problem with this is twofold. Number one, we only took down one of their weapons, they still have a heavy laser firing at us, that's bad. Number two, if any of our shots miss, then we're not dealing any damage. What we could do instead is use our lasers and beam a bit more carefully, using the technique that we saw before. Now, what I'm going to do here is wait for both weapons to be charged, or almost charged, and then fire the dual lasers at weapons. And I just want to have the laser coming out the gun like that. And now I want a very particular beam placement. Something like this. What I'm doing here is cutting the corner into piloting, and you'll see why in a moment. And of course the end of the beam is just touching the weapons room at the last possible moment. So if all goes well, the mini beam will take down the Zoltan Shield. And then the first laser hits. Notice that first laser hit before the beam got into piloting. Then the beam will damage piloting. In this case, this enemy only had level 1 piloting, so we've completely knocked out their evasion. And then something I want you to notice is that the second laser actually gets inside the shield barrier before the beam enters weapons. So if the first shot had missed, then this second shot can still help the mini beam deal 1 damage, at least, to weapons. But this shot is now guaranteed to hit. So we deal 2 damage and take down both their weapons before they can fire again. Of course, it's also possible that one of your initial shots might miss, and I'm just going to simulate that here by cancelling the laser after it fires 1 shot. And what this means is that they're left with 2 hit points of Zoltan Shield instead of 1. What you would normally do here is use your mini beam to get rid of the Zoltan Shield and then try the lasers against the weapons, and if both shots hit, at least you're taking 1 weapon offline. But we can at least attempt to do better. I will say this trick is not tremendously reliable. It doesn't work most of the time, in my experience. It seems to work a bit more often in balance mod, where the mini beam is very slightly longer. I'm going to use a beam placement right into the corner like we saw in the previous episode, just like so. And then I want to wait a bit on the lasers because they need to hit after the Zoltan Shield is completely removed. So I'm watching the mini beam here, and I want to wait until it's glowing red. Just like that. That seems to be the best timing. Now fire the lasers. And with a bit of luck, we take down both weapons. As I say, this is probably not going to work like that most of the time, but if it fails, at least you haven't made anything worse by trying. What if you get really unlucky and miss both of your shots on the initial volley? I'm going to simulate this by not firing my dual lasers at all, so we only get 2 damage done to the Zoltan Shield from the mini beam, leaving it with 3 hit points. Unfortunately, it is completely impossible to deal any damage through 3 hit points of Zoltan Shield, or at least that's what you might think. What we're going to do here is far from reliable. We're going to wait for both weapons to be charged and then use the same beam placement. It doesn't really matter about hitting piloting in this case, by the way, but we're going to try it anyway. Now, the reason I waited for both weapons to be charged is I want to fire them at the same time. This is firing the dual laser slightly earlier than the previous example because I need it to help destroy the Zoltan Shield. So if we get quite lucky, the mini beam will take down one point of Zoltan Shield, and then a laser takes down another. Then the mini beam takes down the last point of Zoltan Shield just in time for the laser to take down the regular shield, just in time for the mini beam to damage weapons. Now, we were only able to take down one weapon, that's as much as you can possibly do, and they do switch back to this one again, but it's still better than having two weapons online. You can do the same thing with the Stealth C, but there are a couple of relevant differences with this charged laser. The separation between the two shots is much greater, and you also have the flexibility to use it in single shot mode. So here we are again with one hit point of Zoltan Shield. If this was the Stealth A, I would be using the Zoltan Shield piercing trick, but it's not necessary here. Every time you use that kind of trick, there is at least a small chance that something goes wrong because of the variable angle of approach of the lasers. So instead, we're just going to fire another single shot and hope that it hits. If it does, like this, then we've reduced the situation to a much simpler one. We can now wait for a full charge on the charged laser, and we're only delaying the mini beam about 4 seconds. It doesn't change the number of volleys that the enemy ship can shoot at us. It's still going to be 2 volleys, whether we use the trick or not. And then we just have a conventional volley here, like so. However, if that single shot misses, which I'm just going to simulate here by turning it off, then we're back to the situation we had with the Stealth A. If I fire another single shot to try to take this down, it's going to delay my volley too much. So I'm going to use the Zoltan Shield piercing trick. We charge up 2 shots. And then we fire this just slightly ahead. Because the separation between these shots is too great, I'm going to use a different beam placement from before. If you recall, before I went across the corner into piloting, that was to make sure I hit piloting early enough to help out the second shot. But that's not relevant here. So I just go straight into the corner, like so. And the same result. Let's suppose that one of your charged laser shots misses on the initial volley of 2. Then we're in a similar situation we saw before for the Stealth A. I'll just cancel that shot, where the enemy will end up with 2 hit points of Zoltan Shield. Oops. So now we could attempt to pierce this using the trick we've seen before, but it's a lot less reliable than if they only have 1 hit point of Zoltan Shield. So as in the last case, I'm going to try to reduce the situation to a better one by firing a single shot from the charged laser. And if that hits, then we have a much easier or more reliable case to deal with. Oh, they did disable the weapon manning bonus here, but it still shouldn't make a difference. As before, I'm just firing a single shot like that, and again I'm going straight into the corner. Oh, it did make a difference. So they did manage to get their shots off because of the manning bonus. I was wrong, but at least their weapons are offline now. There's a parting bit of vengeance from them. However, if that single shot were to miss, then I would attempt to pierce this Zoltan Shield on the next volley, because I don't want to give them a chance to fire another volley at me. So I will charge up the charged laser to full. And then wait for the beam to glow red. Whoops. A little bit late. Might still work. Yeah. If you miss both of your charged laser shots on the initial volley, like so, then the enemy will be left with 3 hit points of Zoltan Shield. And again, it is possible to pierce through this and do 1 point of damage to weapons, but I'd much rather it was 2 hit points. So we're going to fire a single shot from the charged laser again and reduce this situation to a better one. And then of course we wait for 2 shots. And we're going to use the timing we saw before. So what you're seeing here is that each case reduces to the easier one if you hit the single shot from the charged laser. Okay, mini beam is glowing red, and we take both their weapons offline. Of course, it's even possible that that single shot will miss as well, so you miss your first 3 shots in a row. Let's just simulate that. And then, again, I don't want them to have a full 3rd volley against me, if possible. So I will attempt to pierce through 3 layers of Zoltan Shields. The timing on this is a little bit different, I think, for the best chance compared to the Stealth A, because the charged laser does have a slightly longer firing delay and there is the bigger separation between those shots. So the best timing seems to be to wait until the charged laser has just retracted its barrel slightly. Like this. So it hasn't fired yet, but it's just started to animate. And then we use our usual beam placement. Just to be clear, by the way, I am editing these videos so you don't get to see all of the failed attempts to get this beam placement right. That would just be tedious to watch. And our chances are not great here, but it works sometimes. They still have a heavy laser up, but against a shield drone, we're pretty safe here. Well, actually, we're entirely safe, as long as this weapon doesn't have too much charge. All of these Zoltan Shield piercing tricks that we've seen over the last 2 episodes can be used, potentially, against a shield drone instead of a regular Zoltan Shield. So normally what you do here is fire the dual lasers before cloaking so they don't disrupt your cloak. That's not what I'm going to do. I'll cloak, and then fire them, like so. And on this ship we can actually hit shields as well as weapons, but we have to be really careful because we are entering shields after weapons, and as I mentioned before, it's possible that that will mess with the timing. So what I'll do here is just come into weapons at the last possible moment. There. And we take both weapons offline.